Our next speaker is Liew Tong. The first time I saw the word Malay tsunami and pushed was an article written by him. Of course, there could have been other madmen who have said it before, but when he pushed the tellers and make the case for how credible it was, he almost succeeded in persuading me. So I'm glad to welcome to stage the person who proved me wrong, but he himself did not benefit from what he predicted. That is, so Mr. Liew Tong.
Thank you, Thye. Despite not believing that there will be a tsunami, Thye made this call to fix this event before the nomination day. He said, if there is a change of government, then let's do an event on 14th of May. And here you are. On election night, there were two press conferences. One happened at about 12 a.m. I wasn't there. I was traveling from Yongping, and I reached at about 12:30. But the next press conference at 2:45 a.m., Dr. Mahathir told the press that he has spoken to the chief secretary, and the chief secretary will issue a notice of holidays. Now, when we were discussing the holidays just 2 weeks before nomination, after the Election Commission announced a Wednesday polling day, we did not think about the impact it would generate, or actually the benefit of having two days holidays. But I mean, we were just thinking that we want to encourage people to come back to vote, and then we make a promise. But that announcement of holidays has two impacts. Number one, the chief secretary of the government took instruction from the incoming prime minister on that night. That signified the first ever smooth transition of the government. There were delays, there were difficulties, but I think the most important thing about what had happened in the last few days is that from now on, change of government is no longer impossible. And that is good for this country, because the next time when the people want to throw out this government, they would not have to worry about, there would not be fears, there would not be any other concerns. People will exercise their democratic right when the time comes. And that's where I think the most beautiful thing that happened on May 9 and subsequently is that we, as a people, against all odds, we fought against all odds and achieved this together. And I think Malaysians can be very proud of our country and proud of our fellow Malaysians. Of course, the other significant part of the holidays, apart from affirming that the government, signifying the what they call the civil service and subsequently military and the police in recognizing the new government, the other part is that we had 4 days to stabilize the situation. And I think when the market opened, everything is more or less considered accepted. The idea that there's a change of government and a new government came in is no longer alien to anyone. So, in many ways, this transition has been quite smooth as it can get. There will be teething problem about cabinet appointment, about taking actions on other people, and I mean there will be teething problem. But I think we should congratulate ourselves who have done this together. I don't want to go into the detail of manifesto, because when you are in opposition, you make promises, but you do not have full details of what exactly happened inside the government. In other countries, the civil service will have to brief both sides. The civil service, the treasury will have to brief both sides. The treasury will probably have to cost all your promises, but we were making promises without being costed. But I think in this election, even without a robust debate about policies, there are two general ideas that ordinary Malaysians know why they were voting, why they voted for us. I think there are two general ideas there. One is it is about anti-Najib. The second part is about GST and the overall critique of the economic policies of the previous government. Now, when we talk about anti-Najib, it's not so much of just anti-Najib. It's this idea that we must not have another government that is run like the Najib government. Of course, the conditions for Prime Minister Najib to do all this nonsense in the past 9 years perhaps were provided for since the earlier Mahathir administration. So he has to come back to clean it up and hand over the country in 2020, 2 years' time. So this is a very roundabout way of achieving 2020. I mean, Tun Mahathir said that he's retiring in 2 years' time. And 2 years' time means 2020, so this is actually quite significant. It's almost, it's extraordinary. Anyway, anti-Najib is not just about the person. Anti-Najib is about institutional reform. And the public bought into the idea that there needs to be institutional reform so that you don't have a presidential prime minister anymore. You don't have a prime minister that runs the country without check and balance. I think that message is very clear. Despite not having robust debate on policy details, the people voted against Najib, but not Najib alone, but they were voting for the new government to institute reforms. For instance, reducing the power of the prime minister, putting check and balance, having a stronger cabinet, having a strong cabinet and a strong parliament. I think these are the things that people are voting for. They know that vaguely, the public knows that these are the things they are voting for. They are voting for an independent, anti-corruption agency. They're voting for an independent anti-corruption agency. They are voting for a freer press. They are voting for, or they voted for less corruption. I think these are the ideas that we have to deliver. We may not deliver exactly to the dot on every item, but I think these are the ideas that we have to pursue, and if we fail in 5 years' time, for instance, if corruption is the same or even worse, the Malaysian voters will have no qualm to throw us out, because this election has removed the threshold, has removed the fear factor in changing any government. So I think the new government is very clear about this idea that you have to institute, or you have to push for institutional reform, and to ensure that there will be check and balances in the system, to ensure that corruption will be less, and to ensure that you have better governance. Now the second part is about economy. Much as Wan Saiful Probably most people wouldn't like to see it. But I think broadly, the economic policy will have to slightly shift to the left a bit. I say this for him. See, this election, on the ground, you hear about GST. You hear about GST, anti-GST. It's basically an anti-GST campaign. But on the ground, the people are not just voting against GST. They are voting against they voted against GST because they knew that GST and many other economic policies that was pursued by the last government did not have their interest in mind. The GST was implemented, we were against it. GST was implemented, wrong time, wrong place. And the justification for the implementation of GST was that only 11% of Malaysians pay income tax. But the reason why people don't pay income tax is not because people were evading taxes. People did not pay income tax because they did not reach the threshold to pay income tax. What does that mean? That means many Malaysians are earning below the level of income to pay taxes. And more than 60% of Malaysians are on brim. Something is very wrong. So that is the fundamental problem that we have to deal with. How to ensure that people get better pay, how to ensure that Malaysians don't work in Singapore, or Malaysians don't work in Singapore in 3D sector. I mean, this is one of the major campaign issues in Johor, that every household has someone working in Singapore, and many of them are working in 3D sector. Now, how do you deal with unskilled foreign labor in our system? How do you deal with technological upgrade? How do you deal with automation? What is the industrial policy to move the nation forward? I think these are the issues that we have to deal with, regardless of what the manifesto has specified. Of course, on the ground, when I campaigned, quite a few people that I met told me this. They say, and mostly Malays. They say, we are going to vote for you. But if you don't remove GST, you'll be out next time. So there is some public resonance on, and I think GST is something that we have to deal with. Of course, among the financial communities, people are saying, the moment you remove GST, there will be a hole in the budget. You will threaten the fiscal position of the government. But I think change is good, because after the election, then I saw analysts who claim that you remove GST, you have those problems. But at the same time, if the new government can improve on governance, which means taking away corruption or reducing corruption, reducing abuses and unnecessary spending, then you can actually cover it. So let's forget. I'm not saying that analysis are not necessarily accurate, but there is always a way to explain things. So what I think the actual situation is basically, there will be ways to cover the hole. And I think people are looking forward to the new government ensuring that governance will pay, and better governance will ensure that ordinary Malaysians benefit from government services and actually spending less, but actually getting more value for money. So I don't want to go into detail, but I just want to say that overall, the two broad themes, institutional reform and ensuring ordinary Malaysians benefit from economic growth, is something that this government would have to deliver one way or the other. It has to ensure that ordinary Malaysians feel that they are better off 5 years down the road, and when they next go to the polling booth, we'll have to ensure that majority of Malaysians feel happy and they feel that their life are much better off compared to the last time they voted. With that, thank you very much.